guys, welcome back. So we have some pretty crazy news here when it comes to the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition. And this has to do with the government, the US government, calling out Sony for their monopolistic place in the high-end console market. So this comes via this website here, Politico Pro, which is, again, behind a paywall. And this is a tweet here from Mauro NL saying, Senator Maria Cantwell criticized Sony Interactive Entertainment's monopoly control of the high-end gaming market during a hearing Thursday and called on U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai to press Japan on the issue during ongoing talks. Here is the actual excerpt from the article itself. Senator Maria Cantwell criticized Sony Interactive Entertainment's monopoly control of the high-end gaming market during a hearing Thursday, called for the U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai to press Japan on the issue during ongoing trade talks. I'm told that Sony controls a monopoly of 98% of the high-end game market, yet Japan's government has allowed Sony to engage in blatant anti-competitive conduct through exclusive deals and payments to game publishers. Cantwell said this during a Senate Finance Committee hearing, and Cantwell goes on noting that Japan's Fair Trade Commission has failed to investigate these exclusionary conducts before posing a question to Tai. So what do you think we can do better to address these issues and create a level playing field with the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework on something as important as this issue? So they are now getting called out by the US government. It's just super confusing to me when you think about what is going on with the FTC. And I'm not American, so I don't fully understand how they work and everything. But the FTC, obviously, is the American Regulatory Committee, right? They're looking at all of this stuff, and they are right now the ones that have filed to block this deal. They have sued Microsoft to go ahead and block this merger, and they could go all the way to court on August 2nd and get into a battle with Microsoft, an American company, to try to make sure that this deal does not go through. And if you look at a lot of the documents that they have put out, it almost sounds like they're out there, again, like a lot of these other regulators, protecting PlayStation with their dominant position in the market. And the reason why a lot of people think this and say this, although it may not be true, they could just be doing their due diligence with a $70 billion acquisition. But the reason why a lot of people believe that they are out there essentially just protecting Sony is because the arguments that Sony have made compared to what is actually occurring, what Microsoft is going to be doing with this deal, it really doesn't make any sense. You have Sony out there arguing that Microsoft is going to do all of these things to hurt the industry, hurt Call of Duty, hurt the franchises of Activision Blizzard, and not release a game that is parity across the board. Even if they're forced to release it on the PlayStation platform, they're going to degrade it. They're going to make the price higher. They're going to cut off access to gamers. They're going to have a monopolistic place in the market, especially in cloud gaming. All of those things, which we now know based off of the remedies that Microsoft has proposed, will not be true. They are going to be providing more access, and they're giving deals to companies that know that accepting these deals will be very beneficial for them. Therefore, will increase the competition because everybody is going to win by accepting these 10-year deals that Microsoft is throwing out there for Call of Duty and the Activision catalog. And on top of that, a lot of the things that Sony has argued are things that they currently do. And that is the most bewildering thing. It's essentially they are projecting what they are currently doing onto Microsoft and saying that they are going to do what we do. And the reason we can do that right now is because we have such a dominant market position. And this deal is going to take away that dominant market position and allow Microsoft to catch up. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not going to surpass Sony right away. I mean, they may at some point, but they're going to be able to have a better foot into catching up to PlayStation in terms of being a bigger gaming presence, a bigger gaming company. I think after the Activision Blizzard deal goes through, there was this here that Mauro and I also posted. I think even if we consider their revenues, they still will be behind PlayStation. Now, we don't know, these numbers aren't exact because Xbox doesn't actually publish all of their numbers, and they may, I think, potentially surpass them. But this was publishers ranked by 2022 revenue. Tencent number 1, PlayStation number 2 just slightly behind, and Xbox number 3 at 15.6. So right now they're about $9 billion behind PlayStation in terms of revenue. You add the 15 billion plus Activision down here at 7 billion, still will be behind PlayStation by about $2 billion. But to keep in mind, it says Xbox revenues is estimated. The Embracer Group is now bigger than Konami, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Roblox, and Sega. Take-Two revenue rose 41% year over year due to the inclusion of Zynga, and Bandai Namco passed both Activision and EA in annual revenue, and Tencent remains number one. And you got to keep in mind here, Take-Two, they rose their year-over-year revenue 41% because of that acquisition of Zynga. You're going to see that happen with Xbox next year. Their 2023 revenue, depending on if this deal goes through or not, is going to have a huge gain because of the fact that they have acquired Activision. Now, they will still be, though, right there with PlayStation. It's not like Xbox is going to be blowing PlayStation out of the water or even be higher than them based off of these numbers. So it's crazy to think that a lot of these regulators are even paying that much attention to what PlayStation is arguing, to be completely honest, especially with all of the third parties have also come out in support of this deal. And then we get back to this. Microsoft is an American company. The FTC is going against Microsoft, the American company, seemingly right now to protect the dominant position of a Japanese company, which is Sony, which is very confusing, I think, for a lot of people out there, again, when they look at the arguments from the documents that have come out. But this is pretty big because they are now questioning this in calls and in these committee meetings, in the Senate Finance Committee hearing. This is where they're questioning this, asking them to look into Sony's dominance market position. Why hasn't there been any pushback against that? I don't know how this will affect the FTC. From what we understand with the FTC and Lena Khan, based off of a lot of things that has been coming out where people are just leaving the FTC, she's pretty much seemingly trying to just get a win here, which most likely isn't going to happen, especially if they do go to court. Most likely there's no way they're going to be able to beat Microsoft in court based off of the arguments, again, that we've seen. But you never know, crazier things have happened, and we will see if that changes at all. Now, there is something else that I need to bring up, and people are probably going to play this off as if they're Xbox fans as nothing to think about, but I think it is actually relatively important. This is actually Hogue Law's tweet here. He's even saying, how are they getting 98%? Which, again, I think it's because it's the high-end console market and it's not keeping Nintendo in there. But there is this. I think this is relevant because if the shoe was on the other foot, we would definitely be looking at this. And Maria Cantwell, her top contributor, is Microsoft. And in its politics, we know that politicians, companies, they have the donations and they try to, there's lobbyists, all of those types of things occur, right? The biggest contributor to her from 1991 to 2022 has been the Microsoft Corporation, and she right now is one that is actually coming up publicly and trying to push back against everybody and trying to get people to look more into this deal for Microsoft, to be positive for Microsoft rather than the other way around. And I think that is relevant. I think this is a relevant point of information that people should know when you're hearing these quotes in the reporting and all of that type of stuff. So keep that in mind. Maria Cantwell definitely could just be working in the best interest of Microsoft, and we'll see what happens overall if this even does anything. But at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest things that this entire thing is showing everyone, these politicians, these regulators, they really don't have a great understanding of video game industry. They really, really don't. And everything is shining through, especially when they completely just disregarded Nintendo, which probably works more in favor for Microsoft than it does for Sony. Now, I want to jump over here to some very good news for Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart passed or reached 5 million players in under a month, and a lot of that is because of Game Pass. They say here on Twitter, we are grateful to all our players around the world. We are thrilled with the overwhelming response to our first game. Our team has worked hard since 2017 to create a project that delivers the ultimate gaming experience, and we are delighted to see the Atomic Heart has resonated with gamers worldwide. And I mean, Game Pass launch, the hype for the game itself, all of those things have definitely led to the 5 million players in under a month. One thing I will say about Atomic Heart is I've beaten it. I played through the story. I really just stayed on the story line and everything. It is a game with just an immense amount of potential that hasn't been realized yet, in my opinion. There are a lot of things with it that I love, like the storytelling is really cool. The actual characters within the game, I think there's so much they can do. The ending was pretty crazy. There's a lot about this game that is very, very good, but it really is held back for me by a couple of things. The dialogue and the writing, you could tell it was translated and that wasn't very good. The gameplay itself, I find very clunky. That's the one thing, and I'm definitely a gameplay guy when it comes to games. I will take gameplay over story any day of the week. And the gameplay for me, it was just not there yet. It needs to be improved, and it needs to be smoother and just feel better. You know that feeling when you're playing a game that just has incredible gameplay? You just feel it in your hands. Atomic Heart isn't there. And then the open world, which was a large part of this game, I thought was not done well at all. So they have things to improve on, but I definitely can see this game just exploding with an Atomic Heart 2 once they improve on these things. This is the game, it's the developers' first game. So you can't expect everything from them, but I think they did a good job for their first game, just with improvements, which we already know they are working on Atomic Heart 2. I think this game has a huge chance of being a huge hit for years and years to come as they bring out more iterations and more sequels and everything. And hopefully Atomic Heart 2, when it does come out, does land into Xbox Game Pass. And then finally, to end things off, got to give credit where credit's due. Sony was Metacritic's highest rated publisher in 2022. And if you remember, 2021, Xbox was the highest rated. This year, Sony took it. I mean, Xbox really didn't release anything that would allow them to compete in 2022. But here are the scores. You got Sony at number 1. Last year they were second, but they had an average rank of 85.6. One thing to note is that in 2021, when Xbox won, they set the record of 87.1 as the average score. So Xbox, I know people always like to say Xbox doesn't know how to make games. They ruin IPs, all of this type of stuff. The reality of the situation, the facts of the matter prove otherwise, that yes, they have definitely management issues with some other studios, but the games that they have been releasing are high quality games. And it was proven by their Metacritic scores last year. And I mean, Sony, it's never a surprise if they do win Metacritic Publisher of the Year, because they also release extremely high quality games. Their first party games are beloved by a lot of people. The games media love first party PlayStation games, that's for sure. I mean, they make those linear style third person, very narrative driven games that they're very, very high quality, very, very well done. So it's well deserved. Then you have Paradox Entertainment Interactive at number 2 at 81.6, and Activision Blizzard here at 76.5 and number 3. Focus Entertainment, I'm not sure why this is down at number 4, but I guess that would actually be number 3. This is maybe just an error. And Focus Entertainment, I mean, I find Focus Entertainment, just everything that they have published has been really, really good. It's always a publisher. Whenever I see a game coming from them, I'm always interested to see what the game will be all about. So there you have it. Again, 2021 and 2022, it's hard to see the comparison and the compete between Sony and Xbox, but 2023, it's going to be insane to see who wins this Publisher of the Year, and especially for the Xbox side of things, with all of the games that we know that they are releasing. This could be a massive, massive year for all of these publishers and for Xbox. I think 2023 is going to be one of the greatest years. Already started out as one of the greatest year in gaming. I think by the time we're done this year, everyone is going to be remembering how incredible of a year it was in gaming. So I will leave the video there, guys. Let me know your thoughts on all of this stuff. The American government calling out monopolistic Sony with the high-end console market, and then what do you think about Atomic Heart reaching 5 million players and Sony winning the 2022 Metacritic Publisher of the Year? If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.